And we are live. Hello and welcome to the Lyon Show. I'm your host, your favorite business coach, Robert Lyon. Today we have the great privilege of talking to Christine Luken. She's a financial lifeguard. She's an author. She's a money and mindset awesome woman. And I'm just super excited to have her on the show today. So why don't you introduce yourself and tell everybody kind of who you are and what you're up to?
Thank you so much. Yes, I'm Christine Luken. I'm known as the Financial Lifeguard. I am a certified financial counselor with over 13 years of experience helping entrepreneurs and hiring professionals to create a system of daily money management so that money supports your happiness. So it's not a source of stress for you. And my specialty is bringing the emotional and the relational side of money together with the practical management. So it's definitely a holistic approach. It's not about beans and rice, it's not about deprivation. It's about enjoying your money, enjoying spending it, enjoying making it, enjoying saving and investing it so that you can really live your very best life.
I love it. So, I mean, you say you got to be like positive, got to, enjoy your money. So what is your take on like money mindset or like breaking down the barriers? Like I think a lot of people are either afraid to talk about money like it's taboo, or they're like afraid to charge more money because they think money controls everything and it's just such a big thing. Like what do you think is a healthy mindset around money?
Yeah, well, money is important, right? We need to pay attention to it. We interact with money every day, right? You're either spending money, you're saving money, you're earning money, you're interacting with money almost every day. So if we think about money almost like a person, that you have a relationship with your money, I like to ask people, are you respecting your money? Listen to how you talk about money. Listen to those thoughts that are, that constant loop of thoughts that are running in your mind. And if you thought and spoke about money, if you talk that way about your best friend or your spouse, would that person actually want to spend time with you? I mean, a lot of times we say things like, oh, money is the root of all evil, or, you have to work really hard you have to work really hard for your money. And it's like we have all of this emotional baggage around money. So it's like we want more money, but then we're ashamed that we want more money because money's not, like we're not supposed to really want more money, because we might seem like we're greedy and we're evil, and so we've got like all of this bad funky energy around our finances. And so it is important for us to talk about these things. And so, as a financial coach, I'm not coming from a place of I've always done this perfectly. In fact, we were just talking before we started the show. When I was 26 years old, I crashed and burned financially despite having an accounting degree, despite working as an accountant for my family's business. I was, bouncing my own checks at home while helping to prepare the budget for a multi-million dollar company. So, it wasn't that I didn't know what to do in my head, but as I told you, I was in an unhealthy relationship. I was engaged to a guy who had terrible money habits. He was in and out of jobs and in and out of jail. And I thought if I just loved him enough that he would change. And he did. He got worse. So by by the time I was ready to leave the relationship after having, been together with him for 7 years, I found myself, owing three different payday lenders money, being behind on all of my bills. I mean, I don't know if it's possible for a credit score to be negative, but mine was probably close. I mean, it was bad. And I had a lot of shame and embarrassment around the mess I had gotten myself into, especially because I was someone who knew better, right? It's not like I was somebody who wasn't good at math or didn't have a job related to money. Even though I was only 26, most of my jobs up to that point were working for banks and, doing accounting work. And so I had gotten myself into this horrible mess, and I was afraid to ask for help because I didn't want to be judged. And so I did have to swallow my pride and, reach out to somebody and say, I need help. Like I'm stuck in this situation and I don't know how to get out. I wanted to leave the relationship, but I literally had no money to leave the relationship. So I always say, fortunately, my dad was my financial lifeguard, and he was the one that said, hey, look, I'm not going to pay your bills for you. I'm not going to lend you money, but you can come and move in with your stepmom and I, and we'll help you make a plan, to get your crap together and get you back off onto your feet. And I really needed that because I was so emotionally attached to my mess. It was almost like walking into your house after an earthquake or a tornado. It's like you open the door and everything is a disaster and you don't even know where to start. And so you just feel like slamming the door and like turning around and walking away. Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. Um, but because my dad wasn't emotionally attached to my mess, he was able to say, okay, I just want you to do like these two or three things for now. And like, don't worry about anything else. Just do these two or three things. And then we'll meet again in a week or two. And that was really what I needed. I needed somebody who wasn't going to judge me, who wasn't emotionally attached to my mess, and who could just give me that clear direction. Um, almost like saying, okay, yes, I know your house has been struck by a tornado, but let's just focus on the front hall closet. Like, let's just clean and organize that. Don't look at the rest of the house. Let's just do that for now. Right. And it's like, okay, I can handle this.
Mhm.
And that was my journey to healing my finances. And of course, not having to support a grown man child, my finances got better pretty quickly. Um, and I don't think I realized the amount of stress and anxiety that my money situation was causing me until I was on the other side of it. Because probably about a year after that rock bottom moment, I remember driving to work one day and the thought struck me that I couldn't remember the last time I worried about money. And that was a complete and total shock to me because the previous 7 years, that's all I ever thought about. I mean, I would lay in bed and try to balance my bank account in my head. I'm thinking, let's see, I've got the rent due. Like, am I going to have enough for groceries and gas until I get paid again? And, that's not a good place to live at all. And so there really are those two components. Yes, we have to work on our emotions and our relationship with money, but we also have to have that practical knowledge of these are the steps that we need to start taking to move in the right direction.
Took me on a roller coaster there, thinking about all the finances and the past and the future and everything. So
Yes.
I guess now that you are a financial coach, like I mean, I guess it was really personal. You went through that struggle, and you didn't want other people kind of to go through that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, is that kind of what it was like? Is that how you kind of stepped into the role of being a financial coach, or where
Yeah,
did
I
that
mean,
all
it was
start?
a very gradual thing. It started out with me just helping people as a volunteer. So, I went to a church that was teaching a financial literacy course, and one of the leaders asked me to help, and I started helping, and I just really enjoyed, sitting with other people and helping them, to kind of go through that process. And because I had been through it myself, I was understanding, I was compassionate, and I found out, I did that for like 10 years teaching that course. And then
Cool.
about halfway through that, I found out I could get certified as a financial coach. And even when I got the certification, I was still doing it with the mindset of this is just how I'm giving back. I got through this rough spot. This is how, this is my volunteer work. This is how I'm giving back because I was working for the family business. I was part owner by that time, making really great money. But the more I did the financial coaching, the more I fell in love with the transformation that I was seeing with people, and being able to facilitate that change and that transformation of taking people from that money, shame, and anxiety to a place of financial dignity was just so rewarding. And it was almost like you couldn't pay me enough to keep me at the family business, right? Because it's just when you find that work that calls to your soul, it's just like I have to do this. Like I have to help people with this. Like this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I love it. So now that you're helping people, what do you think is like either one of the biggest problems or the most common problems that you can really kind of help put a dent in or help them like do right away?
Well, there's probably a couple things. One of the things that I talk to people a lot about is, you know, that you do have to proactively manage your money. And I know you have a lot of entrepreneurs in your audience. And, whenever I'm coaching someone who's a business owner, I always tell them you need to make sure you're managing your money like a boss. So, even if you are an entrepreneur, most of us have reported to a boss in the past. And so, if you could just imagine, if you were caught up on all the work that your boss had given you and you still had a half a day left on the job, and you walked into your boss's office and you said, "Hey boss, like I'm all caught up on my projects. What would you like me to do for the second half of the day?" If your boss hid underneath his or her desk and didn't answer you, like you would think that that was really weird, right? And then you would probably go and, waste some time on Facebook or Instagram until you had to leave for the day. Um, and everybody laughs when I say that, but a lot of people are treating their money that way, right? They're ignoring their money, they're not proactively managing it. And I think people build it up to be a much bigger and harder task than it actually needs to be. So, one of the things that I tell all my clients, whether they're business owners or not, is that you should have a standing appointment with your money every week. And it really shouldn't take you any more than 15 minutes. Now, if you're an entrepreneur, it might take you a half hour to do both of those two things. Um, but what do you do during that time? You check your accounts. If you are tracking your spending, which I highly recommend, checking your spending versus what your goals are, paying your bills, transferring money to savings, touching base with your spouse or significant other on, anything that's out of the ordinary. It doesn't need to take a ton of time, and it doesn't have to be unpleasant. People make it seem like, oh, I've got to, you know, go down and sit at a card table in my unfinished basement with a bare bulb hanging from the ceiling to do my
Like
accounting.
typewriters, yeah.
Right. It's like, no, it
Calculators.
doesn't have to be that way. Like, you can have a nice scented candle and your cup of coffee, or if you're doing in the evening, you can have a glass of bourbon or wine, and, you know, have your weekly check-in with your money,
Yeah.
because your money wants to be managed. And when you manage your money, it goes further. And I tell people just the simple act of tracking your spending, it'll make it feel like you got a raise,
Mm.
because being more mindful of where your money is going, you're going to, just by doing that, you're going to find ways where you're wasting money. And all of a sudden you're going to be like, oh, like, I didn't know I was still paying for that subscription. Or, oh my gosh, like, I literally had no idea I was spending that much money on eating out, right? So just having that awareness and that mindfulness automatically makes you manage your money so much better. And there's so many tools out there that make the math part of it easy, right? Because I get this objection from people, especially creative folks, where they'll say, well, I'm not good at math. I'm no good with numbers. And it's like, there's like tons of free apps out there that will do 90% of the work for you.
Yeah, I was actually about to ask you that. So I
Yeah.
I actually had a really good there's a small period where I would like write down every time I bought something, and I would kind of write down every time I made some money. And I did it got really good at that, but then I totally stopped doing it. So do you have any modern or other ways of really tracking your spending or that you recommend?
Yeah, so one of my favorite apps, it's called Ask Zeta. So it's AskZeta. That one in particular is amazing for couples, because it allows you to have a multitude of hybrid type budgets, so to speak. So if you have like some separate money and some money that's combined, or like maybe you're engaged and you're not married yet, so you want to share some of your information, but not all of your information, it allows you to do that very easily. But the other thing I love, even if you're married and your money is 100% combined, is that it allows both of you to see in real time exactly what you're spending. And you can even like send notes back and forth to each other. So you can say like, hey, what is this PayPal charge so I can, put it to the right category. Um, but it makes it so easy to see exactly where your money is going. So
Mm.
if you're thinking about eating out or ordering food delivery, one of you can just pull up the app and say, "Oh, well, we budgeted $300 for dining out, and we've only spent 200. I mean, we've got a week left to the end of the month. Like, yeah, we can totally afford to do this, right?" And so that also removes the guilt from spending too, because sometimes when we spend money on things that are fun and we're not sure if that's taking money away from something else, then we can feel this vague sense of guilt. It's like we eat out, but we're like, I'm not sure I should have spent the money on that. So I'm just going to go ahead and feel guilty about it anyways. So
Totally.
having an app like that will let you know, right? Like, hey, you are in line or you're not in line. And the other thing that I love about apps like that is you can also see the aggregate picture. So, sometimes people will see like, oh, like my eating out is in the red. But when we look at our overall income and our overall spending, if we've made 100% of the income that we said we were going to make for the month, and we've only spent 75% of it, and we look at our various categories and say, well, I budgeted $150 for clothes and I didn't buy any clothes this month. So I can choose to overspend a little bit on eating out if I want to, because I can also look at the big picture. So it's really about helping you make better choices in the moment. And it's not about being a straitjacket. I tell people, you can change your plan. Your plan is not chiseled on stone tablets.
Mm.
Um, and if you notice, I don't use the word budget because I don't like it, because most people don't like that word, right? Because it has that same connotation as diet, right? It's like no fun. I can't do what I want to do. It's all about deprivation and restriction. And so I like using the word spending plan. And your spending plan is part of your overall prosperity plan, because when we think about a traditional budget, it's usually here's your income, here's your spending, just make sure it's not negative, right?
Yeah.
So when you think about a prosperity plan is all about increasing your income, knowing where you're spending your money, making sure you're meeting your savings goals, making sure that your debt is manageable and not stressing you out, and making sure that you're investing for those long-term goals like retirement, or if you have kids and you want to make sure that they've got money for college. So, to me, personal finance is much more holistic. It's more like a healthy eating plan
Mm.
versus a keto diet, right? Where like you can't have any carbs.
Yeah. So I asked this, I guess, to most people, and I kind of know the answer, but so I'm an entrepreneur. So sometimes, I make tons of money, and then sometimes it's just like, crickets. So I have a hard time
Yes.
totally having the perfect budget because it just kind of bounces back and forth, and it's just a roller coaster. It's like it's up and down, it's up and down. And do you have any tips for like? I mean, I love that you said make a spending plan, and just kind of stick with that maybe. But do you have any other more insight for
I do.
something that's
And
not so?
actually, like, I have a whole chapter in here. It's
Oh,
it's
nice.
literally called the income roller coaster.
Yeah. Well, there we go. That's what I
But
want.
yeah, so I'll give you like the Cliff Notes version,
Mhm.
um, because essentially it's the same type of plan. There's just some additional components for people who are self-employed and who have variable income. So, first of all, you want to look at one of two things. So, is your income like 100% variable where you could have like a $0 month or like a $20,000 month? Or do you typically have like, well, I know I'm almost always going to have 3,000 or 5,000?
Well, it really does depend. Like, so I guess it's more seasonal. My business, like
Okay.
On creating Christmas, like we were making so much money and so much stuff. Like I just didn't even want money anymore because I was so tired. And then like January and February, it's just been dead because I've just been recovering and I didn't want to like
Right.
market or promote or anything like that.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it is kind of up. And then during the summers, it's always like just crazy busy. So
Yeah.
I mean, we do always have sales though. We're always selling something every week. We sell like probably even on a slow week we sell something. So like there's usually a couple thousand at least every month, and then some months it's just like
Okay. Yeah.
astronomical.
Yeah. So you can do it one of two ways with your spending plan. You can either base it on what you know is going to come in no matter what. And that works especially well if you're married and your
Mhm.
spouse has a traditional job. So, my income, I usually have some income every month, like you, but it can vary wildly. I mean, I could have, it's rare, but every once in a while I could have a month where it's only 2 or 3 grand, but then I could have, 11 or 12 grand the next month. So, basically, what my husband and I have done is we have based our spending plan on his salary. And then what we do is we say, okay, if we get income over and above that, then we have a plan for that money. So essentially, what you do is you have a base budget and then you have an overflow list. So, you know, if you say, like, okay, our household income, no matter what, even if I make nothing, we at least have 4 grand every month because that's what my spouse brings in. So you would base your base budget on that 4 grand. So it would basically be a stripped down budget to say, okay, this is exactly what we need to at least pay all the bills. And then whatever we get over and above that, then we have this list of priorities. Or if you're 100% variable, then you would want to make your base budget on what does it take for me to pay all the basics.
Yeah.
Like what do I need to make sure I have basic groceries? I got all the utilities, the car payments, the minimum due on all my, debts. What is that bottom line number where it's like I have to at least have this? But what happens with a lot of people, if they don't have a plan for the excess, it ends up getting wasted. So we want to pre-populate a list to say, well, what are the other goals that we have? Well, we want to pay extra on the visa, or we want to pay extra on the mortgage. We want to put money in the savings account. We want to save for vacation. We want to start putting aside for Christmas. And so you make that list, and you can take that excess that comes in and you can either say, all right, we have these 5 priorities and we want to put 20% to each and every one of those. So whether you get 1,000 extra or 10,000 extra, you already know exactly how much is going to each of those.
Love it.
So, or you could say, my top priority is this, and I need $1,000 to do that. And then basically take that money and move it as far down the list as you can go.
Yeah.
The other piece that you need to have is your cash flow cushion account. And your cash flow cushion account is separate from your emergency fund. So I like my clients to have 6 months of their basic living expenses in an emergency fund. The cash flow cushion account is the sole purpose of that is when you have an excess month, you're funding that. And when you have a short month, its purpose is for you to draw it down. So one of the things that I'll do is I'll tell people, okay, let's look at your base number. If that's $4,000 a month, let's look at your cash flow in your business for the last 12 to 24 months. How many months did you bring in less than what you needed to cover your
Mm.
basics? And so then we can say, all right, well, based off of that, let's say there were 3 or 4 months in the last 12 where you had less than 4,000. Now, you didn't necessarily have zero. I mean, you might have had a $3,000 month or a $2,000 month. And then I'll tell people, well, what if we had all 4 of those months in a row? What would our shortfall, what would that have looked like? So if we, calculate that and it's like, well, we would have been short $10,000. Now, if we look at the overall year, we weren't short, we actually had an excess. So then we say, okay, our goal is to always have $10,000 in that cash flow cushion account. So that way, when we have a short month, however much we're short, we pull it out. And then the very next month where we have an above average month, we have at least a percentage of that going back into the cash flow cushion. And
Yeah.
then once it's at 10, then that's okay. We can, do whatever with that money that's on our priority list. But that helps to smooth out those highs and lows
Yeah, I love
with
that.
that
That's so
variable
cool.
income.
So
Yeah.
now I want to get into your book. So it's called
Yes.
Money or Emotion is Money. What was the title?
Money is emotional.
Money is
Prevent your
emotional.
Yes,
Nice.
prevent your heart from hijacking your wallet.
Yeah, let's get into that. So, like, I mean, what is the emotion of money? I mean, it can be so many things. It's like joy. It's like when you don't have any, it's really sad. Like, what angle is your book about?
Well, it is all of those things. And I think the most important thing for people to realize is that it is literally impossible for us to make a logical decision about money. And it's actually impossible for us to make a logical decision about anything because science has recently proven that the moment of decision happens in the same part of our brain that processes emotion. And
Hmm.
they found this out like completely by accident. They were studying this group of stroke patients who had damage in the part of their brain that processes emotion. So they were very high functioning, except for they had a hard time expressing emotion and they had a hard time interpreting emotion in other people. And during the study, they took a break for lunch and they asked people, do you want a hamburger or do you want a chicken sandwich? And none of them could make a decision. None of them.
Yeah.
So, you know, to tell people, this is like one of my big pet peeves is when financial professionals tell people to leave emotions out of their financial decision making because they're asking people to do something that's impossible. So, what we actually need to do is we need to discover what is the root of those emotions relative to our finances. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to start paying attention to the things you think about money and the things you say about money. So, with all my clients, I will have them keep a list of the things that they catch themselves thinking about money or saying out loud about money that are negative because those are going to pinpoint some problem areas. And once we uncover those things, then we can actually do something about it. So I love the analogy that Harv Eker uses in his book, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. He talks about the money blueprint. So if you want to think about it this way, all of the stuff that's in our unconscious mind relative to money, the things we think about money, the things we say about money, our early experiences about money, the stuff our parents said about money, like that's all down in our unconscious mind. And so he refers to it as the money blueprint. So, like, if I were to hand you the blueprint to build a ranch house, like, I don't care how hard you work or how fast you work or who you hire, you're only going to get a ranch house with that blueprint. You're never going to get a two-story. The only way you're going to get a two-story is if you go and you fix and change that blueprint. And so what I've realized is that there's so many people out there who are walking around trying to build the equivalent of a two-story financial house, but they're operating off of a ranch blueprint and they don't even realize it. Right. So it's like they're saying, well, I'm trying to do all the things, you know, I'm working hard. I've taken all these courses. Um, like why can't I do this? Like what's wrong with me? And the one thing I tell people is like, that's the wrong question. The right question is what happened to me? What happened to me that is causing me to interact with my money in this way? And that's why it's so important to uncover what your money story is. And so when you look at that list of those negative things that you've said about money, you might look at that list and say, "Oh, I my dad used to say that all the time, right?" Like money doesn't grow on trees and you have to work really hard to make money, right? And so it's like you don't understand why you can't make passive income or why your course sales are flopping because somewhere deep down inside, you feel like it's not right to make money easily without a lot of hard work. And the important thing to remember is that your unconscious mind wants you to be in integrity with yourself. And so there's literally a part of your brain called the reticular activating system, and it acts as a filter. And what it does is it filters out the things that are not important to you and it allows in the things that are important to you. And you've seen this in action if you're car shopping. So if you get your mindset on, oh, I want to buy this kind of car, like I want to buy a brand new white Honda Accord, all of a sudden you see them everywhere, right? And it's not that they weren't there before, right? It's not that
Yeah.
they've just like all magically appeared, but you've basically told your unconscious mind, this is important to me. I want to see this. I want this to be let in. But the other part of it is it will block out things that are either unimportant to you or that conflict with your deeply held convictions. So, if deep down inside you feel like money is the root of all evil, or that in order to make money easily, there must be some sort of scam or you must be taking advantage of people, then your reticular activating system will block out opportunities that may bring you money very easily. Like you literally won't even see them. They won't even come to your awareness. And so that's why it's so important to uncover what is going on under the surface, because once you can uncover it, then you can actually heal those things. You can heal things at the root, and you can reprogram your unconscious mind so that what you say you want, right? And those goals that you want in your deeply held convictions, that those are actually pairing up together. So I talk about exactly how to do that in the book, Money is Emotional. Um,
Well,
but that's not the end of it, right?
mhm.
So I like to say the battle for your money begins in your mind, but it doesn't end there, right? We actually have to take productive action, right? We can't just sit around and meditate on money and say our mantras or our affirmations. We have to go open the savings account, and we have
Yeah.
to like set up the automatic transfers and sign up for the spending app, right? So we actually have to have both parts of those.
Right. I was thinking about doing like a little stand-up thing where I call my landlord and tell him, "Oh, well, I'm manifesting $10,000. So as soon as it's here, I'll pay you my rent." But I want to go back. I'm sorry. You said
Sure.
something so cool. You said so something about the one of our frontal lobes or something. We're actually blocking ourselves from being able to make this money. Can you say that again?
Yeah, so it's called your reticular activating system,
Mm,
and it almost serves, I call it like your brain's bouncer, right? So if
yeah.
you've gone to a club before, the bouncer's like, you're allowed in, you're not allowed in, you're on the list, you're not on the list. And so it will block things that are not in agreement with our deeply held convictions. And it was very interesting because there was an experiment where they took two groups of people. One group of people, they had they had said that they were lucky, like they believed in luck and they thought that they were lucky people. The other group of people were skeptical and they said they didn't believe in luck. And so what they did was they had these people walk down this certain stretch of street, and for each and every one of them, there was $100 bill laying on the sidewalk. 80% of the lucky people saw the money and picked it up. Only 20% of the people saw the money and picked it up in the skeptical group. Like they literally, and most of them in the skeptical group said they didn't see it. They
Hmm.
claimed they did not see it.
That's so crazy.
Isn't that
So
crazy?
so how
I
do
mean,
we
our brains are so amazing.
well, yeah. I'm always looking for weird ways to make money, and then I definitely feel like sometimes I get overwhelmed, so I can't even see the easy money laying on the ground. Like I feel like that happens. So how do you help people break through that? How can you say how can you tell your bouncer to let all the money come, let it all just come in, just let it happen?
Yes. Yeah. Well, and part of it is overwriting that programming. So
Mm,
you can't really like delete files from your unconscious mind, but you can overwrite them. And so if you say, if some of the things that you have been written down are things like, you have to work really hard to make money,
that
or
was
it's
number
not
one that I
fair
was
for
thinking
me to
of.
make money without working really hard, or something along those lines. um, then it's like we want to flip those on their head and say making money is easy for me.
Mm,
um, money comes to me easily and often, and different things like those. So which I go into a lot more depth and description, but by repeating those things, that helps to rewrite what is down in our unconscious mind. And so there's a lot of different ways to do that. But the important thing to know is that your access to your unconscious mind is much more, it's much more closer to the surface when you first wake up, which is why doing things like affirmations and meditation and writing out your goals and your dreams first thing in the morning is actually more effective than doing it in the middle of the day.
Nice. Yeah, I've heard that before. Make some
Yeah.
flashcards and read them instead of scrolling on social media at the beginning.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
The
so I think
other
that's sorry,
yeah,
go
the
for it.
other quick tip that I'll give you is to record yourself saying your affirmations in your own voice, because your unconscious mind trusts your own voice more than anyone else's. So rather than like listening to a recording of somebody saying affirmations or money mantras on YouTube, like write them all down and record them in your own voice.
Nice. And then do you
Because
listen to that, or do you kind of
uh-huh,
just say it to yourself over and over? You listen?
however you want to do it, but actually listening to it, your unconscious mind trusts your own voice more than a stranger's voice, because if you think about it, you listen to yourself talk every day.
Yeah, that's
So
powerful. And you're
yeah.
not the first person to say that either. There's something about when you hit like all the senses, like if you could make a candle that
Yes.
smells like money, you'd have all the senses or something.
Well, no, I mean that's actually really good. That is something that I do teach people is, if there's a particular goal that is really important to you. So, for example, if I say I want to spend an entire month every year on the island of Maui, then it would be smart for me to have a palm tree on my screensaver, Hawaiian luau music as my ringtone, for me to buy like a coconut scented candle or wear coconut scented lotion, so that you are engaging multiple senses,
Yeah.
because then it feels more real to
Hmm.
your unconscious mind. Like, this is happening, this is inevitable.
Yeah. I
But
think
then you
that's
do actually have to take those actions to say, okay, if this is really what I want to do, I need to start saving money for this. So let me open up a Maui savings account and let me set up automatic transfers to start.
mm,
And if you have to start with $5 or $20, do it, right? Just get started. And it's so funny because sometimes I have people come to me and they're like, yeah, I really need your coaching. I've got this debt and I don't have any savings. And I'm like, okay, do you have a savings account? No. Well, that's why you have no savings, because you have no place for it to go.
yeah.
Right? We actually have to take those practical actions in addition to doing the mindset work.
Yeah. It's super powerful. Um, so I'm all about the listener's success. So what are some other
Absolutely.
money tips that we might not have hit on that you think could really help people?
Oh, well, since we've got a lot of entrepreneurs, I'm a big fan of Profit First.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you've read that book before.
I actually had a guy come on the show and he's a profit first coach. So
Yeah.
he went really into it. It's really cool. Have like 5 bank accounts, have your profit first one. And when he said that, it was just kind of a big light bulb went off because I've never thought about doing it. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the one thing I will mention about that is you don't necessarily have to get as granular and do it like exactly by the book.
right.
But just think about what makes sense for you. So for me in my business, I have my operating account, I have my profit account, I have my taxes account, and then I also have a customer deposits account. And the reason why I do that is because if I just put all that money in the operating account, then I'm just tempted to spend it, right?
Right. You never know what's going
Because
to
like
happen.
all of a sudden you start looking at all these things like, oh, I could do this course, or I could hire this coach, or I could do this, or I could do that. And it's like, no, wait a minute. I had 2 clients pay me in full this month,
Yeah.
right? And I'm coaching them for 6 months. Like, I can't spend all of this money right now. I have to put some aside. So it's like I'm almost doing the same thing that you would do on the personal side with that cash cushion account, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I'm basically telling myself, like, look, yeah, we had a $12,000 month in February, but March might not be quite that good, right? So
Yeah.
why don't we push 4 or 5 grand into the customer deposits account or our business savings account? And then if we need some of that in March or April, then it's there. So
Yeah.
I highly encourage people to do that.
Mm.
And most
Yeah.
banks don't care if you have one business account or three or four business accounts. They don't care.
Yeah. They don't give a dang. Um,
Nah.
so do you do credit stuff at all for your coaching, or is it mostly just all like, let's balance everybody's checkbook, make sure things are in order?
Well, for me, it's really about a holistic view of
Yeah.
the personal finances. So, we're working on, I don't really call it like cutting your spending. I call it redirecting your
Hmm.
spending. So, one of the things that we do is we get very clear at the beginning of our coaching as to what does success look like for you, not for me, not for
Yeah.
your brother, you know, like what is it that really makes you happy? Like if you woke up tomorrow and you felt really great about your finances, what has changed? What is now part of your life, what isn't a part of your life? Um, and so let's get really clear on that, because in order for us to make your plan, we have to know both your point A and your point B. Yes, we have to dig into your numbers and figure out exactly where you are right now, but we also have to get clear on what does success look like for you. And then we can start to create that step by step plan
Yeah.
that gets you from point A to point B. So just like when my dad sat down with me and said, do these three things, right? So that's essentially what I'm doing with my clients when I meet with them twice a month. It's like, okay, I see the whole picture, and it's, we're doing these small incremental steps. And I think that is really super important, because a lot of people get really overwhelmed, especially when your finances are a mess, because you're just like, gosh, like this is just a disaster. I don't even know what to do. Or let's talk about savings. If you know that you should have 6 months of your basic living expenses in an emergency savings account, and let's just say that total is $30,000. Well, if you have like $2,000 in there, you're not going to feel really good about that, right? That $30,000 is going to feel overwhelming. So, what I tell people is, okay, let's break this down into baby steps. Let's work on getting 1 month. So, your first goal is not 30,000, it's 5,000. Like, just
Yeah.
put that 30,000 out of your head and let's just focus on the five. And then once you get to the five, then you can set a new goal and say, okay, now I want to get to 10. And so if you can incrementally break up those big goals and say, what are those little steps that I can start taking to move forward in this area? Then it seems less overwhelming, and you don't feel paralyzed. Then you can take that forward action.
Yeah. And you can go forward in your financial freedom. I like the idea of just
Yes.
knowing what your goal is. Like that's just so important for just about everything. Because if you don't have a goal, then you get exactly that. You get nothing.
That's so
My
true.
biggest, yeah, I think my biggest problem with solving my money problems is I just tell myself, oh, I'll just make more money, instead of getting really organized and like focusing on it. Like, oh, I'll just keep making more. And then, it gets to the point where no, you need to,
No, that's so normal. I mean,
yeah,
I coach doctors, I coach attorneys, I coach, business owners who are making six figures. And it's, you know, just thinking about getting that system set up is overwhelming to them. And so that's part of what they get with my coaching is I literally help them get all set up,
yeah,
get everything organized, help them get set up on the app, and then we start building that habit and that practice of using that together. So by the time they graduate out after 6 months, they've had 5 months of practicing and making that a part of their life.
yeah. Well, that's awesome. Is there anything like you're real excited about right now that you've got going on?
Oh, all kinds of things.
Yeah.
I will say probably one of the most exciting things that I recently launched is my magnetic money mindset bundle.
Mm,
And people can find that at moneymindsetbundle.com. It's only 33 bucks, and
cool.
it walks specifically through my entire process that I use with my clients to uncover and reprogram the unconscious mind, but also how to pair that with action. And so there's like over 100 examples of positive money mantras, in addition to screensavers for your phone that you can customize. So you can like put the picture of the Alfa Romeo in there, or the picture of Hawaii in there, and it walks you through exactly how to word your affirmations or your mantras so that they actually work, because I find that a lot of people they don't really do them the right way. They do affirmations, but there's something missing, or that needs to be tweaked in order to make it really work down
Yeah.
deep in your unconscious mind. So,
Let's talk a little bit about that. So, how do you think you should say the mantras? Like, is it the one that I've been saying is you're not supposed to like say, "Oh, I want this." You're supposed to say like, "Oh, I trust this," or something like that. What do you think?
yeah, well, one of the things is you want to ensure that there are no negative words in your mantra. So, for example, I had a client who was getting divorced, and one of her mantras was, I'm no longer financially dependent on my ex husband. There's a lot of negative words in there, right?
Yeah,
Especially ex
it's just kind of a
husband.
scary thing. All of it. Yeah.
Right, so like just saying that like doesn't even feel good.
Yeah.
So we changed that to, I'm a financially free woman. That sounds so much better, right? The other thing is we want them to be in the present tense, because your unconscious mind does not understand past tense or future tense.
Hmm.
It only
Okay.
understands the present. So we need to say it as if it is happening right now.
Yeah. And
And that also tricks your reticular activating system to say, oh, this is happening right now. I better make sure I let this in.
cool. Do you think there like you have to feel the emotion of it being there too, or do you think it's just like, or are you supposed to visualize? I guess you said first, um, record yourself saying it, right? Do you think
Hmm.
that it goes deeper? Do you think you should like feel like you already have it too, and you should visualize already having it? I mean, it can't hurt, right?
I love visualizing. Like, I'm not a great meditator.
Yeah.
Like my mind goes in like a thousand different directions, even if I'm doing like a guided meditation. But what really works for me is if I am imagining a like an ideal day in my life. So, like, if I, a lot of times I'll use like a nature app. So, maybe it'll have like birds chirping, or it'll have, like ocean sounds. And so, like with the ocean sounds, I could imagine I'm waking up in the morning, and, I can hear the ocean sounds coming in through the lanai in my, condo that I'm renting for the month in Maui. And then I can picture myself having my Kona coffee with my fresh pineapple, like sitting out in the lounge chair in my bathrobe. And then it's like I imagine myself going through that ideal day, like my husband and I walking on the beach, and then we go snorkeling, and then we, get fish tacos from the food truck that's beachside, and just like picturing yourself living that ideal day gets you excited. And the more detailed you can get, the better, because that builds the excitement, right?
Yeah. And then, well, whenever you're on the beach eating tacos, when you get back, let me know if that it worked.
Yes,
Uh,
absolutely.
but
Well,
no,
I have been to Maui twice, so
uh,
it's very easy for me to imagine being beachside in Maui.
I
So
know I've been there too. I love Maui
hopefully
so much.
hopefully the pandemic winds down a little bit, but
Yeah.
for now we'll be going to Florida in a couple of weeks. So
Yeah. Oh, well, I love everything you said today. It's been so helpful. So I got
good.
another question, but before we get into it, why don't you tell everybody like the best places to find you online and where they can get your book and where they can go to
Absolutely.
work with you?
Well, yeah, the easiest place to find me is if they just go to moneyisemotional.com. That actually takes them to the book page on my website. But if they're interested in coaching, they can click on coaching. If they're interested in the mindset bundle, they can click on courses, and they'll see the magnetic money mindset bundle as well. I've got a ton of free information on the blog. So if they just go to moneyisemotional.com, they'll find all the resources they need right there.
Cool. Is there an audiobook of your book or
There
no?
absolutely is. Yes.
Cool. That's
Yep.
fun. I'll probably get
Yeah.
that. That sounds pretty good. I like the thing about
Yeah,
writing a
just a
book.
disclaimer, I don't read it. I'm not patient enough to do that, but my narrator is amazing, so
Well, that's awesome.
it's good.
So yeah, the question that I'm asking everybody that comes on the show is, what motivates you, or what is motivation?
Oh, well, what motivates me, especially in my work, is the concept of financial dignity. That's really what I want for people.
Yeah,
It's really important for me to break off that sense of shame, and anxiety for people in their finances. And I think for far too long, the financial industry has been shame based. Like, you know, I'm the expert. Like, you don't know what you're doing. Just give me your money and let me handle it. Um, and I think we need to bring this emotional intelligence to personal finance, to investing, to all areas of our money, and have a much more holistic view of it. So for me, it's all about forwarding the financial dignity movement. Like that gets me up every morning, and gets me excited. And the other thing that really motivates me is coffee.
Yeah.
Lots of good coffee.
Same.
I know you agree with
I do.
that.
So actually, I just have a couple more questions. Do you have any other really good like money books that you can think of that you would recommend for me and the listeners to read?
Absolutely. So I mentioned Harv Ecker's book, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. I
Yeah.
loved that book. That one was amazing. I also love You Are a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sincero.
Yeah.
And then on the more practical side of things, so I am not, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not an expert in investing. But one of the books that I read that really helped me to get a really deep understanding of it was a book by Tony Robbins called Money Master the Game. Um, and I actually, as a result of reading that book, I actually fired my financial planner and hired a new one because I found out that I was overpaying in fees in my IRA plans. And if I would have continued on that trajectory with this woman who was actually my friend, it would have cost me over 20 years $250,000 at retirement.
Yeah, that's why I got to check that out.
Yeah.
It's crazy. All right. Well, cool. Any last thoughts before we wrap up?
Uh no, just start cultivating a good relationship with your money. Start respecting it and spending some good quality time with it. It
Yeah,
loves you. It wants to have a good relationship with you.
I love that. Well, thank you everybody for listening out there and investing the time to take a listen in here. I'm sure you learned something. And I bet there's tons of helpful tips that we just went over. So be sure to share this with a friend or anybody that you think would benefit from hearing this episode. And thanks for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
No problem. Talk to everybody later. Bye.